Hey folks, welcome to another edition of the Patreon Q&A here on the Golden Bolt. It's been a little while since I've done one of these. I'll explain a little bit just as to why that was, because there are some questions that are from what would have been a previous Q&A. If I've missed one of yours, do let me know and I'll add it to the next Q&A to make sure that I get to it. But the short version was that I got sick around the end of February when I got back from vacation with some of the Crub Boys. Shameless plug, by the way, youtube.com/@CrubOfficial. That is my new podcast featuring myself, that Trav guy, Chris Mykonos fan, Moriarty, Wolf Chaoson, famous Twitch streamer JTart9, and All Hail Buckets. A lot of those names may not be familiar to you, but those are a bunch of my buddies that have popped in on streams and whatnot. And that's our podcast where a few of us from that list of people will hang out every week and talk about certain events in the gaming space or the entertainment space or whatever we really want to talk about. It's been a good time so far, so make sure to check that out if you want more of this rambly me talking, because that's some of what you'll get there for sure. Anyway, I got back from a little vacation with the Crub Boys, and I, independently of that, came down with some sort of stomach bug that wasn't caused by the vacation, but slowed me down anyway and messed up my sleep, and it took a while to get myself back to normal with my sleep schedule, because I'm one of those gremlins where if you mess up my sleep schedule, it takes a good while for me to get back to normal. So between that and some annoying work related to having to sit on that GTA video that just came out for a good while, the first chunk of that, the Liberty City Stories chunk, was finished back in February. The rest of it was not finished, but I could have finished it at any point, really. But some sponsor stuff got in the way that caused it to be delayed so far into the future. And that was frustrating because that was just sitting there in the can, more or less, and it had a weird effect on me not really wanting to do work on other videos as much, even though I did, and even though obviously I have to do that work. There was some weird mental block related to that. Maybe in part because I knew that video would have done really well right after The Sims a week prior, because The Sims was just booming right at the same time the GTA would have come out, so I got to see a lot of momentum slow down that I think would have been really cool to have seen, selfishly. So few things added up, but I'm feeling a lot better now, not just because I'm not sick, and I haven't been sick for 3 months at this point, but because I got that spring cleaning out of the way, if that makes sense. So without further ado, on to the questions. The first couple questions here are two of the ones that I missed from that previous Q&A. Like I said, if you don't hear your question here, just let me know. I'll add it to the next Q&A. I did probably get to it, and I did record it. I just don't know where that file went, so here we are. These are both from the Crazy Even. The first one, he mentions that I got into the Metroid series through the Prime games, and while I've played most of the 2D games since, the Prime games have remained real high as my favorites in the series, even after multiple playthroughs over the years. Seeing the reaction to those games 20 years on has got me real interested to see how folks will react to the next two, that's Prime 2 and 3, especially 2. But my question is, what's a game in a series that you played first before other games in that series that dictated your perspective when playing the rest of the games in that series? Sonic Generations. I had to pause to think about it because I knew I had an answer the last time I wrote down my notes for this one, but I can't find those notes obviously because those are months ago. But Sonic Generations is the one, because although I played Sonic 1 in diapers, apparently, I don't remember this, but my sisters told me that, and even though I did buy and play Sonic Unleashed PS2 for like a week before I turned it back in at GameStop because I wasn't really feeling it, and that was when I was like 10-ish, probably. Generations was the game that really got me sucked into Sonic, and if you call me a Sonic fan, that's the game that spawned that, and I guess you probably should call me a Sonic fan because I've played just about every one at this point. I think the only ones I've missed are a couple Game Gear games, and even then, I have those on 3DS eShop, so legally, of course. Yeah, Sonic Generations was a game that that game from a gameplay standpoint just felt perfect to me. Going in and just going for those, you know, arcade high score type times felt really satisfying, and I don't need to explain Sonic Generations to you guys. It's just that was the one that became the measuring stick by which I scored every other Sonic game that I played after it for a long time, and to this day, I don't know that there are too many that I feel are more fun than Sonic Generations, because it is just a special experience. And then Evan's other question is, I asked this for the Feb Q&A, but since Krub murdered that, I'll ask again, unless you did answer this already. Again, the Krub wasn't necessarily the reason to defend them, but it was a lot of work putting together the Krub overlays and the assets and making sure that we had a lot of practice at what we were doing so that we were entertaining from the jump. So if you want to see some of that practice stuff, it's still currently live on the channel. You can see some of our early tests where we were figuring out our format and what we wanted to do, and there's a lot of cool discussions there. We just dropped a Zelda discussion. This is being recorded before that, so I'm going to assume that it's out as of Wednesday, but I don't know because this is like a few days before that, so yeah. Anyway, Even says, I remember you once said people tend to not watch YouTube videos as much as they listen, use it as background noise, etc. This is something I do as well, although most frequently with videos that I've already seen. But you did get me wondering how important people consider the visual element of videos to be these days, so how important do you consider those components of your videos as you've grown and evolved in this venture, excuse me, like compared to how you started versus now, he says. So, I would say that it's funny, there was a conversation I was having with somebody recently where they showed off a channel that had this super customized intro for the game in question that they were covering. They had a lot of little editing tricks. They did a lot to make it visually stimulating without being overstimulating. And I watched that, and my first thought was, I really appreciate this, and also I appreciate that I don't have to do that work to do that, because I'm not super visually inclined. Everything I've done as far as thumbnails or video editing, that's all stuff that I've kind of just taught myself over the course of this. Like, the only thing that I really have by way of experience since I started doing YouTube stuff is that I did take some film classes because I had to fill time in between semesters at one point at my school. So at some point along the line, I decided to take a film thing because I was pursuing a separate degree from my main degree, and the film class was a credit towards that. And that was actually really fun, analyzing, movies in the same way that I already did games, and I really enjoyed that time. But other than that, all this stuff is stuff that I've learned myself. I'm really proud of a lot of the thumbnails I've made because I'm bad at this, or because I've become decent at this by way of teaching myself, just again and again and again, and learning new ways to use Photoshop, or in my case, I use Paint.net usually, not Photoshop. And when that transfers over to the video side, I don't really do many fancy edits because, and part of this is because I've been able to train the audience to expect this, and part of it is because I've been able to train myself to deliver at a quality that allows this. My voice tends to carry the videos or the scripts, and that works out in my favor because that's one of, I would say, my strengths. Obviously this, recording here is a little lower energy because it's like 7 in the morning and I just woke up, so my voice isn't really warmed up yet. This is the warm-up for that. And you can probably hear it as I'm even going through. I'm starting to get into my groove of speaking a lot. But, talking and my script work and putting together a narrative and a through line through which you can recontextualize your favorite game or movie or whatever it might be, that's what I think I do strongest here on the platform. It's that and weaving in timely jokes or weaving in running jokes. I mean, shit, with the Ratchet videos, that was a year plus of work, and there were jokes and through lines that I carried from day one all the way through until July of the following year, so 15 months, give or take. And so because of that, I don't really end up needing to do those high quality edits, and I've had ideas for stuff like that. Like I've talked about the Ghost of Tsushima video I wanted to do, and I have some assets made for that, and I have more that I wanted to have made for that. I don't know whether I will pursue that video currently, just because it's now been so long since I recorded the second set of footage for that video, because I had recorded my run more or less on PS4, then I recorded it again on PS5 when that director's cut version had come out, because I was intending to do like a 1 year later sort of video at that point. And That didn't happen, and now my memory of that footage is vague, so I'd have to rewatch my entire playthrough or play the game again. So I'm probably going to wait until the next game is announced before I do anything big on Ghost. But I had assets made for that, and that's the way that I would go, is that I had an idea for a custom intro, and I was going to commission, and still intend to, if I do this video, commission a friend of mine to put together this really cool custom Golden Bolt intro, because then when I do that, it's going to be something that subscribers, they notice more, because I don't do it often. And that's sort of what made the early Ratchet stuff kind of special, because those that were there at the time, you know, the 25,000 or so of you that were there at the time, they saw the new Golden Bolt theme in action that had the little Ratchet motif that would lead into the Golden Bolt intro, and that felt a little bit bigger. It made them feel a little more grand in the smallest way, but because of those tiny things, it felt more important. And so I guess moral of my story is that my opinion has become that I will just lean into letting my voice carry stuff, and as this sort of venture earns more and I have more that I can spend on this sort of stuff, I want to then, you know, rising tide raises all ships. I want to help pay buddies to do that more advanced work that I can't, or that I would take forever to learn, because now that I've done a lot of, you know, video editing and image editing in general, you know, visual editing, I'm sure I could learn that stuff, those higher level effects, but it'd be so much easier to just not do that, or to do it as a background hobby. But I don't really want video editing to become a hobby as well as work, because, well, duh. So, yeah, because of my voice, I'm able to make up for that difference and make sure that if you are just listening to it like a podcast, you can do that, you know, 99% of the time. And when there's a joke, you'll know, and you'll look back up and you'll rewind and you'll watch it and you'll laugh, probably, hopefully, maybe. I don't care. The next question is from Goldstorm, and this is a good question to ask. I'm really glad you did, because I get to plug a little indie game that I can highly recommend now that I've played it, and I played it because of this question, actually, because I wanted to show you footage of it. So he asks, are there any games you've gotten recently without a lot of information to go off of, just based on the premise looking interesting? And if so, what were your impressions, excuse me? So, one of these games that I saw maybe a year ago on Twitter somewhere was this game called Vivid Lope. It's a little, almost, it gives me Sega Saturn vibes. I don't know why, because I've never really played Sega Saturn games more than like once or twice, but it gives me that early Sega Saturn or PS1 era arcadey vibes. It's, as you'll see on your screen right now, this little puzzle game where you walk around as this rabbit and you have to turn all of the little squares from one color into another, or from one color through to like another color later on. So it might go from gray to blue to red, and you need to get everything to red to finish the level, all while enemies are chasing you and their little power-ups, and it kind of wraps some of these levels around like almost a sphere or different perspectives. And I saw it and immediately I was interested, and this came out not very long ago, maybe within the last month or so. And as soon as I saw that it was out, I bought it right away. I didn't intend to play it right away because I was busy doing some work, but I wanted to support that game immediately because it just looked so cool and so interesting. And that's what it is. You know, it's got some cool, cute little slapsticky cutscenes in between worlds. It's got this good vibe to it. It's got the same sort of thing that I can't think of what game I would be thinking of, but the backgrounds are very clearly like stock images or images that this creator took of different cities or locales, so, you know, like a random grass, plains, hillside area, but with like a lo-fi vaporwave aesthetic over the top of it. And it just, the whole game's a vibe, and I highly recommend it. It's like $10 on Steam. It's really cool, and yeah, I bought that game on Vibe alone, and it delivered. The next question here is from Dan the Man, from the Dan the Man Show on YouTube. Give him a look, because he makes a lot of really cool animation, Adult Swim, cartoon focused content mainly. And speaking of, he asks, with you covering the Futurama game, seeing as how you were a fan of the show and talked a lot about both the show and the game in this video, is there a possibility of a Harvey Birdman game video coming out sometime in the near or far future? You know, probably not, just because as much as it's a really cool game, and as much as I actually like the Harvey Birdman game a lot, and as much as I enjoy the Ace Attorney games in general, which is what Harvey Birdman very much is, I don't know that there's enough of an audience to really be able to put that out on its own. I would love to cover it, but it's one of those where I also have to kind of navigate that algorithm, and I just don't think that one would land, knowing how well Harvey Birdman has ever done. So probably not, even though I would really like to. And now we're moving over from the Discord to the Patreon thread. If you're watching this and you're not a patron, as a friendly reminder, for as little as $1 a month over at patreon.com/thegoldenbolt, you'll get access to this Patreon Q&A thread, to the exclusive Golden Bolt Discord server, and a bunch of other perks, usually including early videos. Sometimes I end up falling a little behind on that because of, well, I'm good at this, but most of the time, early videos as much as I can do so. So, yeah. A Double has two questions here, which are both related. What's a typical The Golden Bolt day when it comes to making an episode, and what's a typically secret The Golden Bolt day that you don't want the public to know about? So, I don't really have a super typical day when it comes to making an episode, and that's a thing that I've been spending a lot of time, and my goal for this year was to iron that out, because a lot of the time my days are just unique based on the project at hand, or based on what I am trying to do with that project, or based on me procrastinating that project to force myself into that 11 p.m. deadlines at midnight sort of vibe that you would have with a paper in school or whatever. So I've been trying to work on that very concertedly over the year. And I'm feeling pretty good about how regimented my schedule is becoming. You know, hold me to that. I'll probably fall short and stumble and come back to that later. But lately, my days have been focused on starting my day, or rather, I should say, ending my prior day, physically writing out my schedule. I have a little schedule notebook that I bought last year as well, that I tried using at the start of last year, and then some life events kind of happened that sort of killed that habit as I was building it, so I had to start rebuilding it. And I started rebuilding it over the course of last year into this year, and I needed a new book, because it's like a little 6-month planner sort of thing. And so finally I needed a new one, and I picked back up starting in June. That way I can just kind of do one every 6 months and hopefully have it wrap through the end of the year, because I'm sure there's a month where I just won't do anything, so I'll just skip that month as far as my schedule goes in this book, and then I'll save these maybe and like kind of look at them down the road as like a little compendium of my ability to improve my productivity with YouTube content, because I'm not a great boss to myself, you know, so far, and I've been trying to work on that, because I would let myself kind of goof off or stress about videos but not work on them because of, you know, suspected probably ADHD sort of stuff. But a typical day right now consists of me waking up, going to the gym in the morning. I've been getting back into that habit now, and it's been feeling great. Obviously, goes without saying, exercise if you can. It always feels good, and so I've been getting back into that, and getting my cardio game back into shape, because I was kind of sad when I got sick, and then my cardio was gone within the week, because that's just how it goes. So I wake up, I do cardio, I look down my list of things I have to do, and I just kind of have them scheduled out based on when I wake up and when I go to the gym, because I don't really set myself to wake up at, 9 a.m. every day just yet. Today I woke up early, but so far I've been setting myself for like at the latest, here's when I'm waking up, because, some of the guys might be up late playing games or something, and that's been less common since a little before we all got together and went on vacation in February, where it was a lot more common, and since then we've been all kind of busy doing our own thing. So I kind of cherish that time when it happens, because, it's a good time. And so anyway, I look at my schedule in the morning based on what time I've gotten back from the gym, what time I ate my breakfast or lunch or whatever at that point. And I write out what I'm going to do and when, and I just set a timer and I do it. So it might be 2 hours of game recording and note-taking. It might be an hour of miscellaneous stuff like apartment hunting or that sort of thing. It might be an hour of relaxing. It might be going to the gym and putting on Succession, which is what I've been doing lately. I needed to pick a new show to habit stack and get my cardio back into game, because I went from pretty good cardio, like a 7-minute mile, pretty consistently kind of cardio, to not that in the last few months because of slowing down and getting sick. So I've slowly built back up into that by, when I'm on the treadmill, I'm watching an episode or 2 of Succession, and I just go until I can't anymore. So it might be an episode, it might be 2 episodes, it might be 2 episodes at 1.5 times speed, because I'm like, I don't really want to be here for 2 hours a day. But anyway, whatever the case, whatever it might be, voiceover and scripting tends to come last, because I'm still kind of, I don't want to call it traumatized, because that's not really fair, and that's not the great word, but we'll go with traumatized by the amount of work that went into the Ratchet videos, that it takes me a while to get over the hump of wanting to start the actual script process for a video, because I'm always anticipating it being this massive epic of a video. But then when I sit down, it's usually not bad. So I'm trying to train my brain to not worry about that. And that's also why I have a whole list of, I'm looking here, I'll pull it up from my other notebook, which is just got a list of topics I could tackle in June, things I want to do in June, things I want to do in general, and I'm counting 20 different games that I could do at any given point. Or 20 different videos, I should say, because a lot of them are shorter videos, and I want to provide those videos, and I want to get better about giving you folks on the Patreon an option to pick which videos I do, which is a lot easier when I have some shorter ones that I still feel can perform algorithmically, because that's always a concern, is I want to do these videos, but I also know that if they don't do well, there's always the chance that even though YouTube says they won't, they either hurt future video performance, or now, more concerningly, a lot of stuff with sponsors, to peel back the curtain, is if they see that recent videos haven't performed well, they'll try and lowball you. But my thing is, every video I've put a sponsor onto, I have told them exactly how it's going to perform, and it performs within like 10% of that, or it overperforms that. So I'm trying to train those sponsors to understand that I know what I'm doing, and that if I make a video that I know is not going to perform, it's because I want to upkeep for subscribers, and I want to give you content that isn't necessarily going to break the bank as far as views go, but that keeps you guys happy in bite-sized chunks, that sort of thing. So that's not really a good answer to that question as far as a typical day, because I don't really have one. And same for a typically secret Golden Bolt day. I don't really have many of those either. I'm working to have more true days off, because that's one of the things about this job, is that, I may not work a true 40 hours a week, but it's on my mind a lot more than 40 hours a week when it's not. So I'm getting back into the habit of, and I've been pretty good about this, completely not thinking about it some days. And that's felt really good, especially as summer comes and a lot of things, too many games, the charity room, a lot of events come up. It's been easier and easier to not think about content for a whole day or two, and that's been really great. So not the best answer to your question, but that's the honest one. And speaking of conventions, speaking of too many games, Nathaniel Foga asks, what's the best deal that I've gotten at a convention? I will give you 2 off the top of my head. They're both PS1 games. Brave Fencer Musashi I got for like $40, I want to say, right as or before it was spiking to $100 plus. I feel like it's a lot more expensive than it was. I got it for a pretty good deal. It was complete in box, perfect condition, and that was one of those that I got because at that Too Many Games, I went around to some of the creators that I followed or that I was fans of, and folks like a Completionist or John or Antude, people that are mostly now friends of the channel, which is always a weird thing to think about. But I asked them what games they would want to see covered more on YouTube, because I had that idea for a series back in, this is probably 2016, 2017, where I would do videos on those games, and I would take that and suggestions or games that my friends found at Too Many Games and gave to me and do a little video thing on them. And the one was Brave Fencer Musashi, which was what John had suggested. And so I bought the game, and I was like, hey, look, I got it. And he's like, oh, shit, cool. How much you get it for? And we talked about it, and I was like, yeah, it was really cheap at the time. It's a lot cheaper now. So that's one. The other is Disruptor. I've talked about this a little bit before. Disruptor is the Insomniac Doom clone game that came out on PS1. They're the first game that Insomniac had ever made. And I specifically did not look for that game online. I wanted to buy that game at Too Many Games. That was my goal for every Too Many Games, was to find and buy that game, because I wanted it to be a game that I did find in the wild. And I found this one random booth a couple years back, and I was looking, and the guy asked, like, what are you looking for? And I said Disruptor, this Insomniac PS1 game, and he didn't have it with him, I want to say, but he was like, look, if I see you tomorrow, I'm going back to the store today. I think we have it in the store. I'll bring it in. And so I checked in with the guy the next day, and someone else was there at the booth, and they were like, yeah, we'll let you know. And I think that they messaged me on Twitter or something. I forget how they got in contact with me, but they reached out when the guy came back from his bathroom or lunch break or whatever. And he got in touch with me and said, hey, I have it. Here it is. And he shows me it's in perfect condition. It's got the little sticker that says 9 out of 10 best game at EGM, or from EGM rather. A little yellow sticker on there that you usually wouldn't see anymore because people peeled those off. Absolutely perfect condition. The disc didn't have a scratch on it, I want to say. And so he gave it to me for, again, also I want to say $30-40, and the game goes for 50-ish usually, or at the time it did. Again, it might be more now, or it might be less. Probably not less, but those two were really cool, and I still have in the sleeve, in the inside insert of Disruptor, I still have that guy's game store card, because one day I want to try and stop in and give them more business if I'm ever in whatever area they were from. But I want to say they weren't super close to the convention center at Too Many Games. But those are the two I'm going to go with. And then I have one last question, which goes back to Krub. I promise I'm not trying to plug Krub 3 times in this video. But Thomas Kuzma asks, your Krubcast is looking crazy cool. I like it when gamers chat together. Have you guys thought about showcasing the games via a Let's Play on top of your Krubcast? I can't say that we have. I have thought about at times for some of these side discussions that we're planning on doing, putting footage over the top of those games if I have it, or if whoever's editing it has that footage. But the sort of mission statement of the Krubcast for us internally is to make it the least work possible to be able to engage and entertain people more than we each already do, and to combine our powers to do so. So adding more work editing stuff or recording footage or doing Let's Plays would kind of take away from that, when right now it's really nice to be able to just sit down once a week and, Tuesdays we do the podcast, and then a day later we discuss what we want to do for the next week's podcast, and then we that's it, for me at least. And so that would be a question for down the road when we have more ability to bring on editors that could do that if they wished to, if they wanted to have that footage, or if one of us had that footage and we wanted to pass it to whoever's editing that episode, because right now it's all kind of meant to be low stakes, and so I can't say for right now that's a thing that we would want to do. Not that I think any of us are opposed. So that is everything for this month's Patreon Q&A. Again, $1 a month over at patreon.com/thegoldenbolt gets you the ability to ask these questions and hear them in video form when I answer them. So, feel free to do that. You get a bunch of other stuff as well. I'm looking to revamp the Patreon this month, hopefully, so that the second half of the year, I feel like I can provide more to you guys than I have been. So hopefully that will come this month. It might not, for all I know, but that's on my list of things to do. If there's a question that you want to hear as a general viewer that's not a patron, you can still ask them below. I may or may not answer them if I see them. Usually I do. But, yeah, that's everything I got for now. So with all that in mind, I will see you next month, probably for another Patreon Q&A, as long as there are enough questions to do said Q&A. If not, I'll hold them off for a little while longer. So get your questions in, and I'll put a thread down probably right around the time that this goes up. And yeah, as always, until next time, stay golden.